Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about my new series where I talk about events that change the world forever. And one of the events that I believe changed the world forever was the attack on the World Trade Center in 2001, so September 11th of 2001. And the way that I look at that chart of the event day is I take all those planets and I relate them to the chart of the United States that I use. And what you're going to find is so many things line up. And the reason why this is actually relative is this event that just happened here in the United States with the coronavirus all lines up as well with the United States, the same timing. So let's put up the chart. Let's put up both the charts of the United States chart and the chart of the event that happened in 9/11. So the USA chart that I use is the Kelleher chart, and it has the ascendant at 8 degrees of Sagittarius. Well, if you will look at what was happening on the day of September 11, 2001, transiting Mars and Ketu were exactly on the ascendant. And let me remind you, Mars and Ketu. Mars is war and violence and anger and hate. It's also energy. It has some good qualities in athletics and sports. But together with Ketu, they become very, very harsh because Ketu is very much like, it's like, well, they say that Ketu is like is likened to Mars. So what they say with Ketu, though, is that it has a burning desire. So eventually it's our burning desire that all of us eventually will be moved towards is spiritual enlightenment from this world. So Ketu is called the Moksha Karaka, which represents liberation from this world. But let me just say, for the most part, when it crosses over placements in your chart and planets, it's the Karaka for losses. So Ketu Mars, major losses, and that equates and equals in my mind to terrorism. And so you put the Mars Ketu on the United States ascendant, the United States is attacked. But if you'll also look, you'll notice that in the chart, for the event chart, Mars and Ketu are in the nakshatra Mula. You've heard me say a million times, Mula is the nakshatra of destruction. These 27 nakshatras, these certain portions in the sky, are very specific with meaning. And if you'll notice where Rahu is, and Jupiter in the event chart, it's in Ardra, the other nakshatra that is so very difficult because it rules tragedy and sadness. Its symbol is a teardrop. So you place Mars Ketu and Jupiter Rahu and the moon into the United States chart, and you will see that Rahu is right there on all of those planets in the 7th house, which is what? Opponents in a mundane chart when you look at charts for countries. And so you may think, well, Jupiter, the great benefic, should have caused or given some protection, but in reality, Jupiter makes things massive, bigger. And with Rahu Jupiter being in the 7th house, the opponent was very, very strong. This is intense. This is what happened. This is where the transits triggered these life changes. And you know something else that I find very interesting is in the United States chart, Uranus is right there at 18 degrees of Taurus. And the transit of Saturn is at 20 degrees of Taurus. And this was definitely an awakening. And one thing I do want you to know about, something I'm going to be pointing out repeatedly if you follow me for a while. around 20 to 23 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio are major degree markings always in these extreme world-changing events. I can surmise it too. There is a fixed star there called Rigel, which really does bring wealth and money. But I think there's something deeper to this we don't know about, because that degree marking in the zodiac is always relative. So the Rahu Ketu are so significant. And if you will look at the Neptune and Uranus conjunction that were coming together, this was a year and a time that technology was beginning to really take off in the world. And that Uranus and Neptune, well, Neptune was almost exactly on Ketu in the United States chart, which essentially in the second house represented how the economy tanked after all of this. And it was pretty much happening at the time. But when we go through some kind of crises in any country, it's going to cause the repercussions of financial disasters afterwards. And so the outer planets are so significant in global and world events. I wanted to point that out. Now, another thing I want to point out on the day of that attack on the United States, notice how Saturn and Pluto are opposed to one another. Because when you get these oppositions or conjunctions with Saturn and Pluto, it is usually always about destruction. You will see that. And of course, this was an extremely destructive event. Likewise, with the coronavirus, where Saturn and Pluto are conjunct. So it is about destruction. But more than anything, when we talk about where Rahu and Ketu are, and they only stay in a sign per a year and a half. Therefore, when they go through all 12 signs, it equates to that it takes 18 and a half years for them to transit through all 12 signs. And the last time that Rahu and Ketu were in these signs and these nakshatras was 2001. And so therefore now we have another world-changing event. But I wanted you to get a sense and a feel of how we can see life-changing events by looking at what? Rahu and Ketu, their nakshatras, as well as focusing in on where the outer planets are, relative even where the outer planets are aspecting Saturn and Jupiter. That's huge in these events. And Saturn and Jupiter are right now conjunct in the same sign. Not quite conjunct, but they're going to make their massive conjunction. And that always changes what? The economy. But going back to this chart, Rahu and Ketu from the United States chart, Rahu being in Cancer and Ketu being in Capricorn. If you will look, that amazing conjunctions of the outer planets. And when we look at where Pluto is actually, now get this, exactly opposed Uranus in the United States chart, close to those degrees that I was mentioning. So here is a life-changing event that affected the world, because 9/11 changed the way we travel. It changed the way we live. And Pluto aspecting the Uranus. This is a very rare aspect. It takes many, many years for Pluto to go through the zodiac. It's got an elliptical orbit. It's around 400 and something years. I yeah, it's a long, long time. So for Pluto to be exact, oppose the Uranus in the 6th house of the United States chart. This was a devastating blow and a catastrophe that was an attack. Because remember, the 12th house is enemies, secret enemies, I might add. And the 6th house is open enemies and accidents. And that's exactly what happened. Well, it wasn't an accident, but it was an event that was an explosive event. So always look, when you're looking at world events, at these outer planets. They're life changers. They're the things that affect the world. So where did this effect occur? In the United States, because it's affecting this chart. So I think you get my idea to look at the outer planets, plus look at where Rahu and Ketu are, and do your research. You can go back to certain times and see where the planets are relative to your chart or a country's chart to better understand the future and what could be happening again. Just remember this. Hindsight is 20/20. And if we can discover and understand how these planets and everything work, then we can better understand and predict and guide ourselves in the future. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me, or you would like a consultation, and don't forget to sign up for my free newsletter, go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. And if you would like to study with me Vedic astrology, I have a wonderful online university. Check it out. It is University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.